Join me, 48 Hours correspondent Erin Moriarty, on my podcast, My Life of Crime, as I take on true crime investigations like no other. This season, I'm looking into the labyrinth of crime and secrets within families. I'm cutting straight to the evidence and talking to the people directly involved, including investigators and the families of victims. Listen to My Life of Crime with Erin Moriarty wherever you get your podcasts.
Inspired by the life of the savvy and ambitious Colombian businesswoman Griselda Blanco comes a new Netflix original limited series. Griselda tells the story of a devoted mother who, with her lethal blend of charm and relentless savagery, creates one of the most powerful cartels in history. Witness Sofia Vergara's captivating transformation into the godmother of the underworld. Griselda, streaming January 25th, only on Netflix.
The following podcast is based on actual police dispatch recordings, police reports, witness testimony, and 911 calls.
A note to listeners. The following podcast contains content that may not be suitable for all audiences. Discretion is advised.
Oh, there's so many rumors. At that point, we had no idea that was her that had called. Is there anything else that I could have done?
What was Conn Nipp's reputation around town?
A drug addict, a drug dealer. He ran from cops all the time.
The violence was horrible. I've been beat many a times by him.
Do you think Conn Nipp knows what happened to Molly and Colt?
Yeah, he knows. He knows.
Joe Russell is as crooked as they come. A bully. A lot of people were scared of him, but they couldn't come forward with a lot of stuff because they were afraid of what he would do to them.
If they know the details, I know that someone has to be afraid to come forward. But you would think that those details would eat them alive.
You're listening to Partners in True Crime. We're your hosts, Rob and Cindy Dorfman. When we started working on this case a few years ago, we were looking for a trail of evidence, and there really wasn't anything except the car, which didn't have any clues as to what happened to Molly and Colt. The only thing there was a 911 call.
This call has driven us crazy. It's a really frustrating call because there's two different theories. Molly called by accident, or she called wanting to get help but afraid to say anything. So we'll let you decide. So let's just play it. After hearing that 911 call, you can understand why there's been so much controversy.
It's so frustrating because there's really no information there. I mean, you can see that someone's on the line. You can hear that, but there's buttons pushing and we know it's her. And it's so hard just to listen to that because if she had just said something.
Right. And I know Paula was very upset about this 911 call because they did not dispatch any officers to the area. And I understand. I would be upset about that too, because you would think if they got a 911 call and there's buttons being pushed, that they immediately would send someone out there.
And usually when there's a hang up with a 911 call, you're supposed to call back and you're supposed to follow up. But today we're going to speak to the actual 911 operator who worked that night and took Molly's call.
Erica, thank you so much for speaking with us today. I also have my partner in true crime here, my husband, Rob Dorfman.
Hi, how are you?
Hi.
Nice to meet you.
Good, how are you? Nice to meet you.
The 911 call has always been a question mark for us because, you know, we did the TV show and there was so much speculation about this 911 call. So I'm very excited to speak to you about that today. Can you tell me a little bit about yourself, what you were doing at the time that Molly went missing?
Yes. I mean, I I was working.
What was your job?
911 dispatcher at Love County Sheriff's Department. Or E911, excuse me.
And how long had you worked there prior to this call?
Yeah, I had worked there 2 years.
On July 7th, 2013. Can you just walk me through what happened that night and what the call was and what you thought of it?
We get a lot of 911 calls there. I would say probably half of them were pocket dials or accidental dials. So policy was that if we didn't hear anything or, if it just hung up or things like that, you just hear buttons dialing. You listen, see if you can hear anything, and then if the call disconnects or you feel like it's a pocket dial, you go ahead and you hang up and you call back just to check to make sure everything was okay. And so after the pursuit, after the buttons were being pressed, the phone got disconnected, so I had called back. Been many years, many 911 calls since then. I can't remember if it went just directly to voicemail and no one picked up at all, or if it rang and then went to where I couldn't leave a message or anything.
But you didn't talk to her?
No, ma'am.
Were there other 911 calls coming in that night after the chase?
Oh, I'm sure.
From people because we had heard, and I don't know if this is true or not, but we had heard that Colt's friends were calling 911.
No, not to our 911 center.
Okay.
I mean, if they were in Carter County, then it would have pinged to Carter County or, whatever county they were in.
Okay, so let's talk about that for a second. So if someone is in Love County and they call 911, even if it's by an accident, it's going to ping to you.
The 911 system is testy. So sometimes we would get calls from 911 calls from Texas because we were so close to the border. Sometimes we would get Texas calls and vice versa. Sometimes Texas would get Oklahoma calls. It's just whichever tower they were closer to that they pinged off of.
Okay. So Molly, this 911 call that comes in, you had no idea that there was someone in distress.
Correct.
When you call back, there was no one there. So then what's the procedure after that?
That's it. I mean, unless they call back again and then it just kind of resets and you start it again. And if nobody's answering, then you call back. We didn't get another ping up call from that number the rest of the night. Hindsight's 2020, but at that point we had no idea that was her that had called until a long time later. We didn't know who was in the car or if anybody else was in the car. I mean, we had no idea.
But did you guys know that it was Conn Nipp?
At the time of the pursuit, yes.
So at the same time that 911 call was coming in, were you overhearing the dispatch of the officers talking to each other during the pursuit? Did you know, were you aware of that happening?
Absolutely.
They're turning east on Water Moccasin right now. Yeah, it's a black 2012 Honda Accord. Are they still running with their lights off? Coming up on Oswald Road. Love County has sighted the vehicle there now in pursuit.
Units advised they do believe it's Conn Nipp. I can't remember if I called the pursuit or if my coworker had even called the pursuit. I mean, that was, I guess, and that at the time it was just another pursuit. Yeah.
And what made you guys think that it was Conn Nipp?
I believe it was the Wilson officer who came on the radio and said that he believed that it was Conn.
He had done that before?
Oh, yes.
Yeah, tell me about Conn Nipp. What was his reputation around town?
A drug addict, a drug dealer. He ran from cops all the time.
So that was something they were used to?
Yeah.
And he would get away with it?
No. I mean, they would chase him down, and half the time they would get him, the other half the time they wouldn't. I mean, it's kind of depending on, I guess, which officer or deputy was working, whether or not, and how well he knew the area to be able to get away.
Yeah, so when he drove to Long Hollow, he knows that area.
Right.
So my other question is this. Joe Russell, did he call in that night? Because I heard someone talking to, some man kept calling in and checking on the status of the chase.
I can't remember, however, if it was somebody who had called in and you could barely understand anything that he was saying, that was probably Joe Russell.
Did Joe Russell, do you know, to your knowledge, did he call off the chase?
I do not remember him calling off the chase, no.
Okay. What's Love County like?
Love County is, and I don't know if it's the same way now. I don't ever really go to Love County anymore. But there's a lot of drugs. There was a lot of drugs. I don't know how it is now. I don't go through there or anything, but then there was a lot of drugs. There was a lot of bad stuff happening. I believe Joe Russell is as crooked as they come. And I'm very, very, very pro-police, and I think that there are more good officers and deputies out there than there are bad, but Joe is not a good one. And so I think that had a lot to do with how things were done then. From what I've heard, the new sheriff there, he's great, and he's really trying to do what he can to make the county better.
So Joe Russell, at the time he was the sheriff, what was his reputation like?
A bully. I've heard a lot of people were scared of him, that they couldn't come forward with a lot of stuff because they were afraid of what he would do to them or, come up with something.
Did they have justification for that fear? I mean, was there anecdotes of people being bullied by him and being threatened by him?
I mean, it wouldn't surprise me, but do I know firsthand? No.
But that was the rumor that was going around.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
That he wasn't trustworthy and that you didn't want to turn your back on him.
Absolutely.
What about the Nipp family? What did you know about them?
Not a whole lot, other than Conn, which I had already worked for another police department before I had went to Love County, and he always gave the officers there in Wilson.
So you worked at Wilson as well?
Yes, that was before they...
That was before the car chase?
Yes, much, much, much before that.
Were you at Love County 911 when the call came in 2014, which was also a 911 butt dial call where they were talking about what they had done to Molly?
At Moxley Lake?
I didn't take that call, I don't believe. I'm telling you, I've been doing this for 12 years. There's a lot of 911 calls.
I'm sure.
I'm sure there's plenty.
But I want to say that I vaguely remember something about that, but I couldn't tell you anything about it. I have no idea.
Yeah, I'm sure it was someone you knew that took the call.
Yeah.
Which was kind of strange. It was a bizarre call. I don't know if you've ever heard it, but
no.
It's basically it calls 911 and you can hear conversations in the background where they're talking. You can hear the name Molly. You can hear gunshots. You can hear, and it's coming from Colby Barracks' phone.
Oh.
So tell me about what you know about Colby.
Just that he was always getting into trouble, and he was not a fan favorite with the police, and that he would set up, just a rumor, I don't know. He would set like booby traps almost, like barbed wire across the road. So when cars ran over it, it would pop their tires and just things like that. Just to screw
with them.
Yeah.
Now, the interesting thing about Love County at that time is that you had Joe Russell, who was basically, I know how sheriffs are basically kings of their castle. They have a lot of power. They have more power than a chief of police. And
correct.
So, they control the jail, they control everything. So with that being said, the fact that he had a family member, Conn, who basically was tormenting both the Love County and Wilson police departments with these crazy chases that when they get stopped, I mean, somebody could have gotten killed there, an officer could have gotten killed like that. How was it that he never arrested for some of them, but it sounded like he was doing this pretty often? And that the fact that he kept on doing it and getting away with it.
That's a fair statement. I don't know. Joe didn't like people to know that he was doing the bad things that he was doing. So he would have had to stick his neck out there and let everybody know that he was okay with that kind of thing. I don't know if he did or not. No idea. Yeah.
Well, as far as we know, in this case, in that night, we've heard several people say he called off the chase.
And I have heard that before, but I never heard that on the radio. When they stopped it, they no longer could find the vehicle. I remember hearing them say, they've lost him in a cloud of dust. All they see is dust. And then it came up to a gate, and they felt that he opened up the gate, went through the gate, and then closed the gate again, and then blacked out on the Nipp property. But who knows?
Yeah.
And it's possible that Joe had called his deputies and told them.
That's what I was going to, that was my next question, was that he, I'm sure he had a direct line to them through his cell phone, and then basically say, hey, just back off there. He goes, if it's calm, back off. He might say, I'll deal with it.
It makes more sense that he would do that than to call 911 and have it recorded.
Right. Like, I never heard it, but I have heard that he called it off. Whether that be true or not, I have no idea.
You weren't shocked when he was arrested?
No.
Okay.
I was happy.
So it was pretty much around town that he wasn't a clean cop.
No. Well, correct.
Yeah. Because that's everything that everybody's told us about.
And he was there for a long time.
Yeah. And again, I've only heard it as in rumors that it was because everybody was scared of him. And so he would threaten them, and so they would vote for him. When you're in this field for a while, you tend to see through people a lot better. And I think a lot of the older community chooses to believe there's more good in people than there are bad. And so they choose not to believe everything that was being said about Joe because of how he was with them in front of them. And so they just felt like he was a good person, so they continued to vote for him also.
Yeah, so he was a good politician.
And also, wasn't his
Correct.
family like deeply entrenched in the area there?
He had family all over that county.
That's what we've heard about Carter and Love County, and just from going there, it seemed like everybody knows everybody.
Yes. Absolutely.
That's the thing. So somebody in that area knows what happened, don't you think?
Oh, I agree.
Why do you think they're not saying anything?
I think that's for a few different reasons also. I think that they don't want to get involved. They don't want to be labeled as a snitch or a narc. They don't want to get hurt for speaking out. They just don't want to get involved.
Well, that's too bad.
What's your impression about that? I mean, if you knew something, we deal with this all day long where we're getting involved, especially when you're dealing with two lives at stake here, two people that just disappeared off the face of the planet. And it doesn't seem like anybody really cares, and they just want to kind of sweep it under the rug and forget about it. What's your thoughts about that?
At first, I think that everybody wanted to help. They wanted to do what they could, but then I think a lot of people just got tired of trying and gotten doors slammed in their faces, and so they just kind of got worn out.
Did the 911, would they ever call into 911 for any tips if someone heard anything? Did anything like that happen?
There was one occasion where the guys had heard of a tip, and they were working with Paula, and then they had went out and they had searched all day long. It was for a day or two across some property. I can tell you where it was or when it was, or a couple of the deputies that I was friends with had went out there, and they had told me that they were going out there and what they were doing, but that they didn't have cell phone service. So they just wanted to call and let me know that that's where they were going to be at.
And nothing came of that.
Correct.
Just seems like that's how this case has been. Thousands and thousands of tips, rumors, leads, and then they all go nowhere.
Right.
What do you think of Paula's determination in trying to find out what's going on here?
I think it's admirable, but at the same time, I would do the same thing. I would never give up. Chooses to believe there's more good in people than there are bad. So,
did you work in the sheriff's department with Joe Russell?
No, I worked for Love County E911. Okay. I work for a sheriff's department now, so when I Love County Sheriff, I'm just used to saying sheriff's department. But no, it was E911. I did not work with Joe Russell at all, other than to dispatch for him.
So where do you work now? You said at a sheriff's department?
Yes, I work at the Jefferson County Sheriff's Office.
So what did you think when you heard about this, like that there was a teenager missing and Conn Nipp was involved and this other guy, Colt Haynes? What did you think about all of this?
Well, I started replaying the whole night all over again in my head. Like, was there anything else that I could do? And I figured the thing would be found, that they were just hiding out somewhere.
After you found out that was Molly's call weeks later, did you go back and listen to the call?
No, only because it was set up to where it would only stay to where we could listen to it after for so long. So by the time I found out, it had already been past that time, and I couldn't, say it's a week. I wouldn't be able to go back past a week to listen to any previous calls.
And who discovered that was Molly's call? Was that somebody?
Oh, yikes. I have no idea.
Was it someone in law enforcement? And then was it around the same time that they realized that you found out through them, obviously, weeks later?
Right.
Okay, so you found out through the grapevine, I would imagine.
Right.
Okay.
But I don't know who originally found that out.
Do you remember what people were saying about this?
Oh, there was lots of stuff. Oh, there's so many rumors.
What was one that made sense to you? That anything can make sense about this case?
That they either just jumped out of the car, when Conn had stopped at one point and they didn't want to have anything to do with it, and then they got lost. That people were hiding them out because they thought that they were going to be in trouble because of pursuit. Everybody has opinions all the time.
Well, knowing what you know about the case now, if you are any following it or anything like that, what do you think happened?
I just don't even know what to believe. I have no idea. Unfortunately, because it has been so long and they were so young, I don't believe that they're on Earth with us anymore.
What's your thoughts about the fact that it's been so many years later and there's no resolution and what's your thoughts about that?
I think it's sad. The family doesn't have their closure. Not even at this point, I don't know if they would even have any closure to it because it has been so long. I don't know if it would really help them or not, but if it would help them, I would hope that they could be found just to help the family.
Yeah. It's terrible what they've been through, and we're working closely with Paula on the things that she's been able to do. So she had mentioned to me that there was this domestic violence law in Oklahoma that says that if there's a 911 call and there's nobody there, that they have to send a patrol car out. How does that work if there's just buttons being pushed?
That is still possible if there's different phases when it comes to the 911 system. Okay. Those phones usually ping on towers and they don't have a very accurate location. Some cell phones do, and it'll ping really, really close to their location. So therefore we can send somebody out there. That's another reason why we don't just hang up. We kind of listen for a minute and see if we can hear anything in the background, and a struggle, noises, yelling, screaming, anything. But with that call, it pinged off of a tower, and that could have been it would have been a huge radius. And at the time, they were still kind of out looking for Conn. Normally, we only had one, maybe two deputies on a night. So we didn't have the manpower for every single call to go in search of 50 miles. I don't know if it's 50 miles or not. I'm just pulling a number. But a 50-mile radius around a cell phone tower to see if maybe we could find something, anything.
At what point did you make the connection that the call that came into you that you thought was possibly a pocket dial was connected to the chase that you were working on at the time?
Oh, wow. Weeks and weeks. I didn't know until somebody told me, oh, my gosh, that was Molly's phone that called in. We have 911 calls. We get so many, and yeah, it's a lot. And a lot of them are pocket dials. So it never stood out to me at the time or even really quickly afterwards because it was just another pocket dial or another accidental dial.
How did you feel when you found out that it was Molly?
It kind of broke my heart a little. I had asked my boss at the time. We went over it. The dispatcher, you always hope that you do everything that you can to make the situation the best. And I knew I had done what I was supposed to, and I called her back, and there was no answer, but I had asked her, is there anything else that I could have done? And she told me multiple times since then, because I did what I was supposed to do, and there wasn't anything else that I could do. Yeah. It broke my heart.
That was really tough to listen to. I really think that our 911 system needs to be looked at, because if there are so many pocket dials coming in all night, how can they tell which ones are actual emergencies?
They can't. That's the problem. With all the technology we have today, 911 definitely needs to be updated to ensure that every call is treated like an emergency, even if the person doesn't call back.
Okay, so how do we do that? Do we need to petition a new law? Let's look into that.
The whole Joe Russell thing is bothering me, because we know that he called off the chase that night, and we know that because we did the television show, we spoke to someone who worked for him.
Yes, we did. Right now we're going to call Johnny Denney, one of the Love County deputies who was involved in the second pursuit, and he worked under Joe Russell.
And we also interviewed, he didn't make the documentary that we did on television, but we did interview him, and he's online, and we spoke to him, and he had a lot of choice words to say about Joe Russell and what happened that night, and also what happened in the subsequent nights on another chase. So it's going to be interesting to hear him.
Hello.
Hey, Johnny, it's Cindy Dorfman. How are you?
Hey, how are you?
Not too bad. Thanks so much for talking to us.
You're very welcome, but I might have to end it abruptly. I'm waiting a call back from the OSBI right now.
Oh, okay. No problem. I wanted to just kind of go back to when Molly and Colt went missing. Can you tell me how you got involved in this case?
Yes, ma'am. I was a deputy for the Love County Sheriff's Office, and I'm trying to remember if I think I was on duty that night. I think it was because there's been so many pursuits with Conn Nipp that some I was on duty, some I got called out. I believe I was on duty the night that Colt and Molly went missing in that first pursuit out of Carter County.
And was that something Conn did often, you just said? So it was like you guys knew about him?
Yes, ma'am.
So when you were working at the Love County Sheriff's Department, who was the sheriff at the time?
Joe Russell.
What was that like, working under Joe Russell?
It was strenuous. He would always listen to the radio traffic. You know, you never knew. You'd pull somebody over, and you'd get a phone call from Joe. Oh, he's a good guy. You need to let him go. Or he was always messing up your traffic stops.
Because he was just getting involved with everything.
Yes, ma'am.
So when Molly went missing, Paula has told us multiple times that he didn't want to take a missing persons report. So do you remember the chase, or do you remember anything that happened after you heard about this case?
The first chase, no. I remember, it was coming in from Carter County, and I never seen the vehicle that night, but we were 1022, told not get involved. Sheriff was afraid somebody was going to wreck a car or something. It was hard to make an assumption of what did happen and what was all going on. It just had a lot of strange, just really weird, with it being the sheriff's cousin, and the sheriff telling us, not to get involved, and, telling us not to talk to nobody. Just real peculiar.
So Joe Russell was telling you not to get involved with people. So was that a normal thing for him?
He did that a lot with people that wasn't his family too. So, but I think with Conn being his cousin, that was the main thing for us, him telling us not to get involved.
In January 2014, 6 months after Molly and Colt disappeared, Conn Nipp was in another high-speed chase. And Johnny, you were there for that one too, right?
Yes.
So how long did you work in the sheriff's department under Joe Russell?
About 18 months.
And why did you leave?
From the second pursuit with Conn Nipp, I got accused of assaulting John Nipp on the night of the pursuit with OHP.
Tell me about that.
I was off duty that night. I was the canine deputy for Love County, and dispatch called me at home, said OHP was in pursuit. They were requesting for me to come out with my canine in case the vehicle was abandoned, that we could maybe track from the vehicle. And While en route, I hear radio traffic. One of the troopers positively identified the driver as Conn Nipp. There was another trooper there. Conn Nipp ran one of them off the road. I believe he totaled his Charger out. They were headed down Long Hollow Road. Of course, I'm in a Dodge Charger also. Get there. You can't follow at the end of Long Hollow Road where there's a gate. It goes into the Nipp family property. It's not paved. It's real washed out, ravine type terrain to where a Dodge Charger won't go. So I stopped waiting for another deputy to show up with a four-wheel drive pickup. When a trooper starts hollering at me on the radio for me to come back to the Nipp residence, I do that. I show up at the Nipp residence. There's a deputy's vehicle, a trooper's car in the driveway. I got out of the vehicle, got my canine to get ready. Conn Nipp ends up coming out of the house, he's telling me I can't be there, that, I need to get off his property. Telling him, you're under arrest at this time. He runs back in the house. Have to go in and get him, and it was just a nightmare.
It sounds like it. So this was something Conn was doing all the time, these high-speed chases.
I was involved, with the first one, and then this second one was the only two that I was ever involved in. But the first one, we got cut off pretty early by Joe.
And that was the one with Molly and Colt.
Yes, ma'am.
So when Conn Nipp said that he wasn't with Molly and Colt that night, that's pretty ridiculous.
Yes. Yeah, according to all the witness statements from the first night or the first pursuit, that many people had testified or wrote statements to the fact that Colt and Molly were with Conn that night.
Do you think Conn Nipp knows what happened to Molly and Colt?
Yeah, he knows. He knows.
I want to talk about Colt right now because he's also a victim, and it's been hard to get people to open up about him. But luckily, we have Cady, who was dating him and who also dated Conn, believe it or not, before that. And she has a baby with Colt. And I believe the baby should be almost 10 or 11 years old by now. And she's agreed to speak to us again.
Hello.
Hey, Cady, it's Cindy. How are you?
Good. How are you?
I'm okay. I have Rob here, too. Do you remember him?
Hey, Cady, how are you?
Yeah. Hi. Good.
Cady, can you tell us how you met Colt and what kind of guy he was?
Me and Colt met, and right off the bat, it was just a hookup, and I got pregnant. He hung around. He went to jail during my pregnancy. He hung around for about a month and a half after our son Jagger was born. And shortly after that, when he left out, he got strung back out on drugs and wasn't around much at all. And then our son was 10 months old when he went missing, so he's 9 now. He'll be 10 in October. Yes, it's been a while. And we're all still local here in Marietta, so it's still actively talked about. I mean, it hasn't been forgotten about.
Do people say anything to you?
They'll ask for updates. Mostly I feel like it's people just wanting to be nosy. I'll have people every now and again message, just like I said, just being nosy, want to know if I've heard anything, or people that I used to be close to want to know if updates. Our son goes to school here at Marietta, and the school system's great about protecting. They've let us use a different last name, and so they really protect him.
Good. That's good. Can you tell us a little bit about what kind of person Colt was?
Colt did the best for what he knew. I don't think he had the most family nurturing upbringing that you would think a kid would have. And I think, like I said, he did the best for what he knew. We tried to guide him, got him introduced to church. My dad got him a job in Ardmore, which is pretty much locally other than Marietta. So we tried to set him on the right path. But he wanted his friends. He didn't know any. I mean, the kids that he grew up with was his friends. It was just hard for him to get away from that lifestyle. And once I got pregnant, I mean, there was no more of that. around me or anything like that. So I was strict with it. I didn't tolerate him being around our son at all like that. So I've had a bunch of people say that I pushed him away and all that, but I was just doing what I know was right as a mother.
Why did you decide to do that?
Just the people that he was hanging around with. He had been back to jail. Meth. I mean, I think that was his main catch up was meth. But once I had Jagger and he left out from the house, I'd heard that he got more involved in, meth is heavy, but heroin, when you think of it, it's a little bit worse. And I heard that he had gotten involved in that. And I know once someone involves in that type of substance, they're not in their right head, and there was no need for me to be around him or him to be around our son.
Do you mind us going back just a little bit, just to kind of get some context here? Like how did you first meet him? And then, what was it like after he initially disappeared? What were your thoughts?
Mm-hmm. I first met him through his brother's kid's mother, which his brother Dub, and his child's mother is Erica Nipp, which is Conn's cousin. So me and Conn used to hang around over at Erica's. And I knew that one day hanging around Erica, it wasn't just one day, it was over time. I just got to know her kids' fathers, just their everyday life and his everyday life, and how they would talk about him having a brother getting out of Colt was in jail at the time. I think he was actually in prison, but I knew that he was getting out soon, and that didn't attract me. I didn't like that type of stuff, guys. I was always honestly scared to date outside of Conn just because of the violence. But so I knew had to go pick Dub from work, and Colt rode with us to see his brother, and we started talking ever since that point. That was we were together every day since. I think that me and my family was his safe place. I think we kind of showed him what a family was like. I'm the only child, but I'm super close with my parents. I'm out there at their house every day. I mean, they helped me raise Jagger. So I think that we kind of gave him that safe being place. Got him out of Wilson.
Independent of his, doing the drugs and in and out of jail and prison, what was his core personality when he was just he was himself? With you, what was his core personality like?
Oh, he was happy. He was happy as could be. Just actually the other night, I was talking to my husband. I said, I just don't have anything bad to say about him. The drug use just got to him. Like I said, I just think that he didn't know another type of lifestyle, or wasn't strong enough to get out of that type of lifestyle. But he was always happy-go-lucky. He was never abusive. He was never any of that.
So when Colt disappeared, how did you feel, and what did you think happened to him?
I hated it. Me and him had already disconnected our emotional attachment. It wasn't there for him. But I hated it for my son. I knew that I didn't ever want to do what I've had to do. Jagger's life, I've kind of had to keep it a secret, and I didn't want to do that. I don't want everyone Jagger hurting. So there was a lot of hurt there.
Cady, how long after the chase did you find out what had happened?
It was probably 2 or 3 days. A girl that I've just been friends with, her ex-husband worked for Carter County, and she called me and she said, she messaged me, I think it was Facebook, said, "Hey girl, I need to talk to you. Can you call me?" So I called. I was at work at the time, and I called her, and she said, "Have you talked to Colt?" Told her I had, and she had known that me and him had been split up. She said, "I didn't figure you had, but supposedly there was a high-speed chase, and he's missing." You just get a sick feeling.
Did you know right then that it was bad, that it was going to have a bad outcome?
I didn't know, but I just had that gut feeling. Just when I heard that it was with Conn and everything. To me, in my history with Conn, anything involved with him is bad. There was never any positive outcome with anything that come from him. So
before you met Colt, you were dating Conn. Can you tell me a little bit about that?
Yes, I dated Conn for a couple of years. And when I say date, in my head at that time we were dating. I don't even know if he claimed it half the time. He was so out there and on drugs, and the violence was horrible. So it was just really, it was not your ideal dating relationship if it was just a drug world.
How did he feel when you started seeing Colt?
I dropped Conn off at a gas station right before, like the day before I met Colt, and I never saw Conn as in terms of me and him seeing each other again. I cut all like relationship connections and everything. I knew that that was my chance to get away, and I took it.
When you were with Conn, no. I mean, and you said you were on and on, you were basically together for like 2 years. I'm sure you spent a lot of time at his house, correct?
My parents never allowed drugs at all. Not a strict upbringing. I mean, it wasn't drill sergeant, but there was no drugs, no alcohol, no, none of that. And I veered out to the drug world. And when I did that, I didn't go home. I didn't go around my parents. I didn't want to hurt them. But not only, I mean, being on drugs, I was all bruised up from the violence. So I stayed out at his family's all the time.
So I guess what you're trying to tell us is that the house, the Nipp house, was basically it was everyone could do drugs there freely, and then there was a lot of obviously violent behavior based upon the drug use.
But more of the drug use was more you could come and go as you please. If you wanted to go to a party, you could. If you wanted to go out in the pasture to the barn for hours, you could. You wouldn't be bothered. It wasn't actively in the house, but it was come and go as you please. Use it.
Were you surprised that Conn and Colt were friends?
Absolutely, because when me and Colt got together, he learned all about the violence and stuff with Conn, and he hated it. I mean, like I said, Colt was never violent to me, so it made him mad that Conn was like that. It wasn't a secret that I was scared of Conn, and it made him mad how the violence was there. So when I heard about him hanging out, it was just kind of like a slap in the face to me as a mom. As your kid's mother, you know what this guy's done, and you're hanging out with him.
Did he have a reputation before you started dating him? Did you kind of know what he was like beforehand, or what was the attraction to Conn?
His reputation, yeah, he was always at all the parties, the get-togethers, but he wasn't, at that time, he wasn't the druggie. He would smoke weed, but it was not the meth that I knew of, like at that time. That didn't start till months in. But he was always the funny guy, honestly. Everybody, he'd crack up to get along with people, and then he started the more heavy use. But I think the use was always there. It was just, I mean, I only saw him out in public. I wasn't around him all the time.
Why do you think that Colt and Conn were hanging out together?
No doubt drugs. There's no doubt. You couldn't convince me otherwise.
And then while you were there, were there any other people that came there? Like there was another person that, we've heard of as Colby Barrack. Was he hanging out at
or another guy named Rob Branch?
Yeah, Rob was his cousin, and Colby was his aunt's fiance, kid's father. I don't know if they were ever really married or not. Rob was in prison, so he got out, and I was only around him a couple months. I knew when he was locked up, it was like Conn obsessed over Rob's lifestyle, but it was like he obsessed over Colby's too. But Rob nor Colby were sociable people. Colby kept to himself. He creeped me out.
What was it about Colby that creeped you out? Was it just because he was quiet, or was he just kept to himself? I mean, what?
Just the comments that Conn would always make of him. Conn tried to make him out to be scary, and not necessarily scary, but like when I'd be walking to the car at night, Conn would be like, "You better be careful. Colby's out there laid out watching you." And it was just always little comments, but he personally never did. I mean, we never hung out. He was never around me to creep me out. But I think it's just because I knew what Conn had talked him up to being capable of.
Do you think Colby could have done something to them? What do you think happened to Molly and Colt?
Honestly, I've heard so many over the years. I mean, What in my head is Conn freaked out. I think that Colt probably got hurt in the crash, and Conn freaked out. Conn was one to spaz out when he thought he was hemmed up and going to get in trouble. He was going to spaz out, just like when he used, with the violence. After the violence was there, and he would hit me or whatever, he would spaz out because he knew that I was going to go to someone, and usually it was his grandma that I'd go to, or a friend, or he knew that it was going to get out from just me and him. And so I really think that maybe when the crash happened or Colt got hurt, they say that there was a 911 call. Maybe they reached out, and I don't know if Conn got scared. I don't know. I don't know if they thought that they were going to attract, law enforcement and stuff. And Conn, of course, didn't want that out there. I don't know. And as far as Molly, that poor girl was just wrong place, wrong time.
Did you know her before?
When me and Conn, before we ever even really got serious, I knew her from Wilson. But I didn't know her. I never hung out with her. She was so much younger. But I did know of her name just from being around town. And she was not an active teenager, but people knew who she was.
There's been so many theories and thrown out. I mean, what do you, out of the things that have been thrown out there, what do you think, what makes the most sense to you?
I think, like I said, that he spazzed. I don't know. I don't even like saying it, but I don't know if they'll ever find anything, because I don't know if he spazzed and took them somewhere. If he, of course, y'all know they've never even been on the land. So, you don't know if he's buried them, if he's had years to do anything. So at this time, it's just sickening.
Don't you think it's crazy that law enforcement never searched the Nipp property?
Oh, yeah.
Why do you think that?
Especially with with Joe, his family being in law enforcement and able to veer things, not cause attention, and sort through what he wanted attention caused to. I think that's, of course, what it all comes down to. I think if Colt would have been from Marietta, I think it all would have been handled differently. If that would have been me gone missing, I'm not saying that I'm known in this town, but I've grown up in this town. I think it would have been handled different. I think Paula tried her damnedest to get it handled as soon as she could. And anybody that asks about this case, I tell them, if it wasn't for Paula,
if it wasn't for Paula, I don't think anybody would even know about it at this point.
Absolutely. I don't think so either.
And I think that's insane, to be honest.
Yeah.
So you feel that Conn had a hand in it? I mean, because, when we talked to Paula looked in his eyes, and she feels that he knows something, but she doesn't feel like he had a hand in, her demise and Colt's demise. I mean, what do you feel about that?
One was on heroin. I don't know what he was capable of. I hadn't been around him in, 2 years almost when they went missing. So, but
is this based upon your experience with him, his violent nature, again, towards you, that you feel like he may have flipped out?
Oh, if he didn't flip out, then he went and got someone else that did help. You know what I mean? Like the Kobe. When everybody says how Kobe was involved. But I don't know. They might have got injured in the crash, and then he sent Kobe back to take care of wherever. I just don't know. And that's what drives me so crazy, is I like knowing everything. And this has been the biggest puzzle of my life, that we don't know.
Oh, I can't even imagine. It would drive me crazy.
Yes, and just to see people at school functions and in town at the grocery store, and I run into his aunt numerous times. Seeing him in the gas stations, grocery stores, like I said, just walking by and just having to take their smirks, but having to question, what do you know? I want to physically grab them and ask them, say it, but I know that that'll never happen.
Why would they be smirking at you? That's what bothers me, because I know how they acted towards us, and it's.
I don't know. They've really tried to portray that they're the hurt ones in all this.
Interesting.
How so? How's that even possible?
That we brought this attention and, just that their family's not this type of family, and it's just Paula making up all this stuff, and it blows my mind.
Well, they could have disproved all this very quickly. They could have let the law enforcement onto the property to search it properly. They could have cooperated. It sounded like they didn't. It seemed like it was pulling teeth, and they didn't cooperate. And
because they didn't have 1 chance, 2 chance, 3 chance, 50 chances. They had hundreds of chances. Every day I feel that goes by, you have a chance
to search that property and just check it off the list.
Just open it up and say, here you go.
That's what bothers me. Like, why? Why won't you do that?
Yeah.
What's their reputation? When you first got involved with Conn, did you know about his family? Did you know anything about his family? Did they have a reputation around town? Like, what do people?
I didn't know anybody. Conn was the first one of the family, other than his cousin Erica that I had, which I didn't even know the family when I knew her. Just from us knowing each other, just being same age and all that. I never knew their outside family other than Erica and Conn until I started going around Conn's house and getting to know the family. But honestly, outside, and my parents go to church out there in Eastman, which is about 2 miles from the Nipps, maybe 3. The people that sat in the pew in front of us is a Nipp family, cousins to them, and they're a great family. So what I did know was the family we went to church with, and you would have never thought that anything was wrong with that family. But once me and Conn got together, you start hearing stuff. Once my mom heard, my mom was born and raised in Marietta also. So when she had heard, she hated it. My mom had worked on the ambulance, and when Conn's dad had lost his arm, my mom was actually the one to go pick him up and treat him. So she knew the drug use, and I think the lifestyle of, his dad. But she wasn't close to him. But just being from Marietta and knowing people, she did not like it. It killed my parents seeing me go through all that.
I can imagine. I mean, you were young though. It seems like that area is really has a big drug problem.
Oh yeah, and it's just got worse, which is crazy to me. Even people that I've graduated with, they've gone out in the past couple of years on drugs, and they have kids, and it blows my mind. You see it run people every day. I feel like there's nothing to do around here for kids and youth and all that.
Yeah, it's scary.
Absolutely, drugs are bad.
I don't want to bring up bad memories, but I just wanted to know if you can just give us a little bit of an insight into what the relationship with Conn was like, and I'm so sorry you had to go through all of that.
Yeah, it was just horrible. I mean, I was constantly cheated on, constantly taken advantage of. My parents, more my grandparents than my parents, always made sure I had a car, I had transportation. I always was taken care of. I feel part of the time he was with me just to use my car. He wrecked out 2 of my cars in the time that we was together, just being high on drugs. So it was awful.
The violence was?
It was just horrible. It was there. It never went away. And I know I'm thankful I got out when I did.
Yeah. And his family, they knew what he was doing to you?
Yes. I mean, everybody knew that me and Conn fought. Like I said, we didn't have a good relationship by any means. Everybody knew how it was.
So he has that in him to be violent?
Mm-hmm. I really think, I don't think he had really much structure as an upbringing, and I think it just built. He got, like I said, I think he obsessed kind of like over his cousin Rob, over Colby. He, for some reason, I don't know why anybody would want that, but wanted to be like him.
And what do you know about Rob Branch?
That's the one that he was in prison. I think his mom and Conn's grandma are cousins, distant cousins, maybe, if I remember right. But I would always hear Conn talk about him, but it was more he was obsessed with him for being in the prison. Like I said, Conn liked that lifestyle. He thought it was cool.
So he looked up to Colby and Rob Branch. That's what it sounds like.
Absolutely. Yes.
Interesting.
And they were both in and out of jail.
Mm-hmm. I remember Rob, I think he was in the Irish, Mafia Irish. I don't even know what it's called in prison for sure. But I remember like Conn would start wearing all green because he knew that that's what his cousin wore. It was just weird stuff like that. You could tell that he liked that lifestyle.
Did you meet Rob Branch?
Only a couple times, and it was never a hangout. It was more, I had to sit in the truck. I knew whose house we were at. I didn't ask what we were doing or nothing like that. I knew whenever we were out in public, I didn't ask questions. I didn't ask people's names. I didn't talk to people. I was just to sit there. I mean, don't stare at people, don't nothing.
It seems like based upon, Conn's MO was to have a girlfriend and use her car, and basically because that's what he did with the chase too. It was his girlfriend's car that he quote unquote that she said that it was stolen, but I'm sure she reported it stolen, so it made it look like something else. But it sounds like he did the same exact thing to you. And, I mean, your car could have been one of the cars, had it come later, could have been if you had stayed with him, it could have been the car that...
Oh, absolutely. Just as easy.
And then as far as Rob Branch, what was the age difference between him and Conn?
He was older than me even. I would say he was probably 5 or 10 years older than me, and I'm 31.
Okay.
Yeah, he was definitely older. Like I said, I didn't even ever hear his age or birthday. It was just by looks. And his looks, honestly, he's all covered in tattoos. So
got it.
Did you know Michaela, Conn's sister?
No. I knew her. She would come over every once in a while. Conn's grandma still would take care of her when they had Christmas. She would buy her gifts. Things like that. Conn's grandma tried to take care of her, just like she would call and buy shoes, buy stuff. She would come over every once in a while and get her hair done by Conn's grandma or something like that. But she was never, I don't ever remember her she never actively lived there or was there on an everyday basis or even on a regular basis. We were never close.
I'm sorry to be so intrusive, but my question, because I'm just trying to paint a picture of Conn's character. When you say he was violent to you, what do you mean? Did he physically hit you? Did he physically?
Oh yeah, I've been beat many a times by him.
I'm sorry.
It made me, I don't want to say that I built off of it, but it made me stronger, which I don't think that anybody needs to go through a life like that to be made stronger, but
I'm so sorry.
I made it out, so.
Yeah, but you're doing great now, so that's really
absolutely.
I graduate Friday from college as an esthetician, so
fantastic.
I've got 3 babies, new marriage.
Congratulations. We're very happy to hear that, Cady. You look great and you look really happy in the pictures and stuff, and we're happy to hear that. What would you like to see happen with this? What kind of resolution would you like?
Just to know that I just want to know. I think we just all want to know what happened so I can have a story to tell my son one day.
Yeah.
We just actually 2 weeks ago had to talk with Jagger. That his dad always said was he ran away. And no more was said. But I'd like to have a story to tell him one day. So just closure. I want it just as bad for Molly's family as I do for Jagger, though, as well. I know it eats at Paula.
I know. That's tough.
Yeah.
It's tough. It's tough because you don't know, what are you going to say to him? You don't even know what's going on.
Right. And it's not like you can go out and pay to find out. I mean, it's literally a mystery that someone's gotten away with.
I mean, some of these theories that they had in the beginning that Molly and Colt ran off together. I mean, what is your thoughts on any of that?
Absolutely not. I don't think there's any way in hell that Colt could have found himself anywhere. When my dad got Colt's a job in Ardmore, like I mentioned. Ardmore from Marietta is probably 20 minutes. Colt had to have help. We had to give him directions to get there. It was like Colt grew up in Wilson and he knew nothing but Wilson and the places that he traveled. He wasn't, I've grown up being able to travel. I mean, go on vacations with my family often, frequently. Colt did not have a sense of direction. He didn't have outside support. He didn't, like I said, he never had that family connection for anybody to be there to help him. So no. Once I heard there was a police chase, all that, Colt and Molly weren't missing, I knew as the days went on. I mean, Colt didn't pop up for weeks, turn into months. You just kind of just realize that something's happened. Like I said, no one knows. No one will talk. But you just kind of accept that there's no doubt that Conn did something with him. And if he hasn't, he definitely knows.
Yeah, we agree. There's no way he doesn't know. He was with them.
Exactly. There's a lot of people that know.
I'd love to be able, I'm not going to say I'd love to be able to, because I'd probably have an anxiety attack and shake and cry the whole time to sit down face to face with him. But to be able to look, even just how Paula did, look him in the eyes and say, where are they? No one believes you. No one. But I don't know that he don't like the attention. I don't know that he don't like knowing that he's got away with it, feeling that cockiness.
Yeah.
Do you think that's that whole family and Colby? Did they all think they got away with it?
Right. Oh, absolutely. Yeah.
What does the community think? I mean, obviously, I know it's been like almost 10 years now, and now it's becoming to be some sort of myth. It's turning into a myth now.
Right. Of course, the people that know my family, that know me, that's been involved, that just know, I have never thought anything else other than Conn knows what happened to them. If he didn't do it, like I said, he knows what. So I think part of the community knows, like, this man is out here uncharged. But then I think part of the community that doesn't know him, that never knew him, that just knew the outlook of the Nipp family, that didn't know the bad of it, I can see where people would think it was a myth from what the lack of stuff that law enforcement has done.
I just don't understand how a small place like this, no one said what happened.
I know. It's crazy. And what bothers me the most is I know that people know that I've seen after the fact, that I might see on a weekly, like I said, at the store, when I pass people, I question, do you know anything? I don't question them, but of course that's what I question in my mind.
Why do you think no one has stepped up and said something? Is it that, do they have that much of a stronghold on that area?
I don't know. I really don't. It's blown my mind, especially with the reward that's been put out. I mean, it's not like everybody's wealthy in Marietta. That reward could have changed someone's life. No doubt, it's crazy to me.
You think
nothing's been said.
You think they're afraid?
I'm sure that they are. If they know the details, I know that someone has to be afraid to come forward. You would think that those details would eat them alive.
Next time on Partners in True Crime.
I know that she did not make it out of those woods.
Molly was completely drenched in water, like she just got out of the lake. My mom nodded her head like, yeah, it's real, she's right here. And I went and gave her a hug, and that was it felt so real.
Molly had a big heart. I just can't imagine why somebody would hurt anybody, but hurt Molly.
There's got to be someone else behind it that they're way more scared of that can get them out here or in jail.
It's been a crazy week, and we just want to thank everyone who's been helping us get the word out about this podcast. And those who have been listening, it means so much to us and to Paula. So thank you. We also want to thank those who signed up for VIP membership. We're working on scheduling our Q&A for the behind the scenes material. So we'll be posting some of that stuff soon. So again, thank you for your patience, and we're so excited to have you. All rights reserved. This has been a production of 722 Media Content.
For any tips relating to the disappearance of Molly Miller and Colt Haynes, please contact 833-4-MOLLY and Colt, and they will be directed to the proper law enforcement agency.
Please check out our website, where you'll find supplemental material and Vi's original song, Take Me Back, written for Molly Miller. If you or anyone you know has been the victim of sexual abuse, please contact the National Domestic Violence Hotline.
If you or anyone you know is suffering from a methamphetamine addiction, please contact the American Meth Addiction Hotline.